In a stunning turn of events, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeff launches a blistering accusation against President Donald Trump. Jeff claims Trump is concealing Jeffrey Epstein-related documents to protect himself. Trump's response moments later leaves the entire room in stunned silence and media outlets scrambling. The cameras focused intensely as Minority Leader Jeff approached the microphone with determination. "Fellow Americans, our nation faces grave danger," Jeff declared during the live broadcast. "The man who calls himself our president is deliberately hiding crucial information from the public. That infamous Epstein client list contains his name among its pages. That's precisely why he's blocking its release from public view. He's a disturbed individual, a failed businessman, a predator of the worst kind." Audible gasps echoed throughout the chamber as veteran journalists exchanged nervous glances. Jeffer continued, his voice growing increasingly forceful. "Donald Trump has proven himself unfit for the presidency. His corruption runs bone deep, and America deserves far better leadership. We must move for his immediate impeachment without delay." Within seconds, Trump Epstein began trending across social media. News anchors whispered urgently to their producers behind the scenes. Throughout the country, citizens remained glued to their screens, watching events unfold. Meanwhile, in the White House, Donald Trump observed the broadcast silently, his expression unreadable. "Mr. President, we need to issue a statement immediately," one aide insisted. Trump slowly rose to his feet, adjusted his signature red tie, and whispered, "Let's give them a performance they'll remember forever." Inside the press room, chaos intensified by the minute as networks repeatedly aired Jeffers' speech. Protesters gathered outside the White House gates, their chants growing louder. "Release the files. Impeach Trump now. Mr. President, this situation poses serious dangers to your administration." Kelly, his communications director, warned, "If we don't respond forcefully now, they'll completely destroy everything you've built." Trump raised his hand, signaling for complete silence in the room. "Let them continue their outrage," he stated confidently. "Allow them to believe every fabrication Jeffer just presented to the public. The louder their protests grow, the harder they'll crash when I finally address the nation." "Sir, are you suggesting?" An aide began hesitantly. Trump's face broke into a knowing smirk. "I've consistently remained 3 steps ahead of these individuals since day one. I have all the evidence needed to expose the truth. Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. we'll broadcast live to the American people." Meanwhile, in his Capitol Hill office, Jeff celebrated what he perceived as a victory. Trump cannot possibly survive this political blow, he boasted confidently to his staff members. None of them noticed the ominous storm clouds gathering over Washington. The following day carried the unmistakable tension of impending confrontation. Every major network announced special breaking coverage of the unfolding drama. In cafes, airports, and living rooms across America, heated discussions erupted among citizens. At precisely 7:59 p.m., millions of Americans tuned in simultaneously. The White House briefing room overflowed with journalists. All cameras focused intently on the presidential podium. Donald Trump entered the room with measured steps, his demeanor lacking any trace of anger or defensiveness. "Good evening, my fellow Americans," he began with steady confidence. "Last night, a desperate politician leveled unspeakable accusations against me without evidence. Tonight, I stand before you to reveal the complete truth and expose the real predator hiding in plain sight." Trump's unwavering gaze methodically swept across the assembled journalists. "Throughout my life, I've faced countless accusations and attacks," Trump began reflectively. "But yesterday, Minority Leader Jeff reached unprecedented depths of dishonesty. He labeled me a predator, a failure, a sick individual, unfit for office. That represents more than just a personal attack against me. It constitutes an assault on every American citizen who values truth and justice in our great nation." A reporter attempted to interject a question, but Trump calmly raised his hand. "Allow me to ask something that deserves serious consideration. If I were genuinely concealing Epstein-related documents as alleged, why would I personally direct Attorney General Pam Bondi to prepare every credible file connected to that investigation for public release? Can Jeff provide a reasonable explanation for that inconsistency?" Murmurs of speculation rippled through the assembled press corps. Trump leaned closer to the microphone, his voice gaining intensity. "Jeff isn't exposing government corruption as he claims. He's actively participating in a massive cover-up operation, and he knows precisely why he's doing it. Jeff, watching the broadcast from his office, felt an unmistakable chill crawl down his spine. Trump hadn't even revealed his most damaging evidence yet. Jeff resembles a wounded predator backed into a corner, Trump continued methodically. He's hurling wild, unfounded accusations because he recognizes his time in power is rapidly ending. The president reached deliberately for a folder prominently labeled confidential and then displayed it for the cameras. Within these pages exists documentation proving who possessed the Epstein client list for 4 consecutive years. Joe Biden's administration had complete access to these files throughout their term. Yet remarkably, they chose not to release this information to the American public. I invite you to question why they made that decision. The assembled journalists remained frozen in stunned silence. Jeffrey desperately wants your attention diverted elsewhere, Trump added with conviction. He needs you distracted from the millions of dollars he quietly funneled during Biden's presidency. Taxpayer money, your hard-earned dollars, simply vanished without explanation. Now he's projecting his own guilt by accusing me of the very crimes he and his allies have committed. A young journalist nervously rose to her feet. Mr. President, are you directly implying that Jeffrey? What I'm stating clearly, Trump interrupted with precision, is that if anyone warrants investigation for Epstein connections, it's Jeffrey himself. Outside the White House, crowds began assembling in growing numbers. In his congressional office, Jeffrey slammed his fist against his desk in frustration. He's bluffing completely. He possesses no actual evidence, he insisted loudly. Yet, deep within his consciousness, a nagging voice whispered, what if he really does have proof? By morning, Trump's address dominated every major headline across the nation. Trump flips Epstein accusations. Is Jeff the guilty party? Appeared prominently throughout Washington. And panic spread rapidly among political insiders. Democratic strategists hastily organized emergency meetings behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Trump released a brief video statement that quickly went viral. I've consistently told you I'm fighting to protect America's children from harm. I've repeatedly emphasized my commitment to eliminating corruption at every level. Jeffrey and his political allies are fighting desperately to protect themselves from exposure. Stay vigilant. This investigation has only begun, unveiling the truth. Across the nation, mothers wept openly while watching Trump's impassioned speech. Veterans stood at attention in their living rooms out of respect for the president's message. Even former critics reluctantly admitted, Trump sounds genuinely sincere this time. Back in his congressional office, Jeffrey's phone rang continuously without pause. Political allies demanded immediate explanations for the mounting allegations. Journalists camped persistently outside his door, hoping for comment. Jeff appeared before reporters the following morning with bloodshot eyes, but maintained a defiant tone. President Trump is deliberately spreading falsehoods, Jeff declared angrily. This represents classic misdirection tactics from a corrupt, failed leader desperately trying to save his sinking administration. Don't allow him to deceive you with these theatrics. The Epstein client list remains hidden specifically because Trump's name appears within its pages. Sir, how do you respond to Trump's assertion that the Biden administration possessed these files for years without disclosure? A young reporter inquired. Jeffrey hesitated noticeably, his expression tightening. That claim is completely irrelevant to the current situation. Trump's historical pattern of behavior speaks volumes about his character. He represents an imminent danger to our democratic institutions. Across town, Trump observed the live broadcast with remarkable composure. He's panicking visibly now, he remarked quietly. Should we release the first piece of conclusive evidence, sir? Asked Kelly. Trump shook his head decisively. Not quite yet. Let him continue digging himself deeper into this hole. By noon, the country appeared increasingly divided over the escalating situation. Outside the White House, massive crowds gathered in growing numbers. Inside the presidential residence, Trump methodically prepared for his second televised address. At precisely 2 p.m., Trump strode purposefully to the podium, the presidential seal gleaming behind him. My fellow Americans, I haven't come here today to engage in political games. Last night, Jeffrey attempted to destroy my reputation with vicious fabrications. Today, I will demonstrate the unvarnished truth about his activities and explain why he desperately wants your attention diverted elsewhere. Do you genuinely believe that someone actively combating child trafficking would conceal Epstein-related files from public view? Or does it seem more plausible that those making these accusations against me are hiding something far more sinister themselves? Trump deliberately extracted a single document from his jacket pocket and held it high for the cameras. This paper contains a signed executive order from Attorney General Pam Bondi dated precisely 3 weeks ago. It officially instructs the Justice Department to prepare every credible document connected to Epstein for immediate public release. Audible gasps erupted throughout the press room. And yet, Trump continued forcefully. Jeff stood before television cameras nationwide and falsely claimed, "I'm actively blocking these files from public view." Why would he make such a demonstrably false assertion? Because he fully understands that once these documents become public knowledge, the entire narrative changes permanently. A courageous reporter stood up to ask a question. Are you suggesting Minority Leader Jeff personally knows the identities listed in the Epstein documents? Trump's eyes flashed with intensity. Not only does he possess this knowledge, he's desperately attempting to redirect blame because he and his political allies are terrified of what's coming next. Across America, millions watched with hands covering their mouths in shock. Meanwhile, in his office, Jeff violently hurled a glass of water across the room in frustration. Trump is completely bluffing. He has absolutely nothing concrete. But deep in his heart, fear gnawed relentlessly like a hungry predator. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump continued, his voice remaining calm yet cutting. The Epstein files haven't been released to the public yet because the previous administration deliberately kept them sealed under various pretexts. I encourage everyone to question why they made that decision. Trump extracted a second document from his folder. This internal memorandum dated 8 months ago clearly demonstrates how Biden's Department of Justice actively suppressed key Epstein evidence under the convenient excuse of national security concerns. Guess which powerful political figure personally signed off on this deliberate delay? Hakeem Jeff authorized this suppression personally. A collective wave of shock swept through the assembled press corps. Jeff wants the American public to believe I'm concealing damaging information, Trump stated plainly. But he knows with absolute certainty that the moment these files become public, names he's desperate to protect will be exposed for all to see. That explains his increasingly vicious attacks against my administration. Across America, people began whispering uncertainly in their living rooms. What if Trump is actually telling the complete truth about this situation? Meanwhile, Jeff sat alone in his office, staring blankly at his phone screen. His inbox overflowed with panicked messages from political donors and allies demanding explanations. Jeff marched onto the Capitol steps hours later, surrounded by visibly agitated political allies. Donald Trump is a pathological liar, he shouted angrily toward the assembled cameras. This so-called evidence has been completely fabricated to salvage his crumbling presidency. He's always been a master of distraction techniques. Don't allow yourselves to be manipulated by his theatrics. Protesters from opposing viewpoints clashed violently outside the government buildings. Back in the Oval Office, Trump carefully reviewed a substantial stack of classified folders. Are you prepared to conclude this matter definitively, sir? Asked Pam Bondi. Trump looked up with serious determination evident in his expression. Almost ready. Let Jeff continue his public tantrum a bit longer. The louder his protests become, the more devastating his eventual downfall will be. At that precise moment, social media platforms erupted with activity. A leaked video suddenly appeared showing Jeffer in a closed-door meeting during Biden's presidency, angrily insisting, "The Epstein list absolutely cannot be made public. It would destroy all of us." The incriminating video spread across the internet with unprecedented speed. Jeff's face drained of color as he watched the damaging clip on his smartphone. At exactly 8 p.m., Trump addressed the nation live from the White House yet again. Good evening, my fellow Americans. Trump began with solemn dignity. Tonight, I will reveal the unvarnished truth they never intended for you to discover. He deliberately held up a comprehensive dossier of evidence. This file contains irrefutable proof that millions of taxpayer dollars were funneled through elaborate shell companies directly connected to Hakeem Jeff during the Biden administration. Money originally designated for schools, hospitals, and community programs was systematically stolen from public coffers. Gasps of disbelief filled the press room completely. And while he brazenly accuses me of concealing Epstein documents, I challenge him to explain why he personally signed authorization to suppress these very files. Ask him directly why he's protecting specific names contained within these documents. In his congressional office, Jeff collapsed heavily into his chair, utterly defeated. Reporters outside pounded relentlessly on his door, demanding immediate responses to these serious allegations. Trump's final words that evening resonated powerfully across America. Truth inevitably emerges into the light, and when it does, America ultimately triumphs. Jeffers sat alone in his office, staring numbly at his phone screen. The leaked video showing him actively suppressing the Epstein files played repeatedly across every major news network nationwide. "This represents nothing but a coordinated smear campaign against me," he shouted furiously. But even his loyal staff appeared visibly uneasy. "Now, sir," one aide whispered nervously, avoiding direct eye contact. "People are increasingly questioning why your administration never released the Epstein files during Biden's entire presidency." Jeff slammed his fist violently against his desk. "I instructed you to shut down that line of questioning immediately." Meanwhile, in the White House, Trump calmly prepared his next strategic move. "Tomorrow, I'll reveal information that will shake Washington's foundations to their core. You definitely won't want to miss this historic announcement." The following morning, Jeff appeared on CNN, his face visibly strained from stress. "Donald Trump is fabricating elaborate lies to save his political career," he told the host emphatically. But the host unexpectedly interrupted his practiced narrative. "Congressman, how do you specifically address the evidence President Trump presented last night? The financial documents and the suppressed Epstein files require explanation." Jeffries stammered noticeably, struggling to maintain composure. It's completely fabricated evidence. Trump has always been a master manipulator of information. Don't allow him to deceive the American public." That evening, Trump addressed the nation again in a broadcast that broke viewing records. "This situation transcends ordinary politics," Trump began solemnly. "This fundamentally concerns the eternal struggle between good and evil forces in our society." He deliberately held up a thick folder prominently marked classified for cameras to capture. Within these pages are wire transfer records and shell company documentation, conclusively proving that during Biden's administration, Jeff personally directed $24 million in taxpayer funds into private offshore accounts. And while he callously labels me a predator, a Trump continued, his voice trembling with genuine emotion. Jeff actively protects powerful individuals whose names remain hidden within the Epstein files. Many of these individuals dined regularly with Jeffers. Many received substantial financial support from his political machine. In Washington, Jeffries' phone rang continuously without respite. His closest political allies abandoned him rapidly, one after another. Trump's powerful voice echoed across America without opposition. "America, this represents your fight too. Never allow corrupt forces to silence truth in our great nation." Jeffers' congressional office descended into complete chaos. Papers littered the floor haphazardly as aides whispered nervously in corners, planning their career exits. "Sir," his chief of staff said quietly, avoiding direct eye contact. "CNN and MSNBC have just withdrawn their editorial support completely. They're demanding immediate answers regarding those suspicious wire transfers." Jeff's face turned deathly pale. Those financial documents were supposed to remain permanently sealed from public view. How did Trump possibly access them? Across America, public sentiment shifted dramatically overnight. Videos of Trump's revelations went viral across all social media platforms. Meanwhile, Trump walked calmly into the Oval Office with quiet determination. "Are you prepared for the final phase, sir?" Pam Bondi inquired respectfully. Trump nodded with resolve. "Tonight, we conclude this matter permanently. No more deception or manipulation. America deserves nothing less than complete truth." At precisely 7 p.m., Trump's final address commenced. "Hakeem Jeff publicly accused me of being a sexual predator," Trump began, his tone heavy with genuine emotion. "But throughout my entire career, I've fought harder than anyone against human trafficking networks. I've personally met with affected families. I've witnessed their unimaginable pain firsthand, and I swore a sacred oath on my beloved grandchildren's lives that I would never cease fighting for these victims." He paused momentarily, his eyes visibly moist with emotion. "The complete Epstein files will be released to the public without redaction," he stated with unwavering determination. "Because the good, decent people of America deserve to know the complete truth about this tragic situation." In homes across the country, mothers cried openly. Veterans saluted their television screens respectfully. Even former critics bowed their heads in newfound respect. Jeff, watching from a hotel room under armed security protection, felt his knees weaken as he observed the massive crowds outside chanting, "Trump fights for us." Jeff attempted one final desperate counter-move, hastily calling an emergency press conference. Donald Trump continues spreading dangerous falsehoods. He's deliberately distorting factual information to salvage his failing presidency, but his words were completely drowned out by protesters chanting loudly, "Release the truth." Lock Jeff up. Back in the White House, Trump stood silently by the window, observing the growing crowds. "Sir," an aide whispered discreetly, "Jeffries' congressional allies have officially withdrawn their support completely. They're now demanding an immediate ethics investigation into his financial activities." That night, video clips of Trump's powerful speech flooded social media platforms everywhere. People wept openly while posting heartfelt comments like, "I never fully understood how much this man sacrificed for America until this moment." In his isolated hotel room, Jeff stared blankly at his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in his lengthy political career, he found himself completely speechless. Headlines flashed urgently across screens with devastating impact. Ethics Committee launches investigation into Minority Leader Jeffrey amid expanding financial scandal. Trump formally demands Epstein files be released in full without redaction. At 10 a.m., Trump formally announced a nationwide address scheduled for that evening. The announcement sent immediate shock waves across America. "This particular speech will define the legacy of my presidency," Trump told his assembled team confidently. That evening, Trump approached the podium with quiet dignity. The entire world watched with bated breath as reporters fell completely silent in anticipation. "My fellow Americans," Trump began softly but clearly, "this matter transcends ordinary political disagreements. This fundamentally concerns truth, justice, and protecting innocent victims from exploitation." He deliberately held up a thick folder stamped top secret for cameras to capture. "Here are documented communications between Hakeem Jeff and foreign lobbyists proving criminal activity. He systematically embezzled over $24 million during Biden's administration. Money stolen directly from hardworking American taxpayers. And while he brazenly accused me of predatory behavior," Trump continued, his voice breaking with genuine emotion, "I worked tirelessly day and night to protect America's vulnerable children from actual predators, the very individuals Jeffrey currently shields from justice." As Trump delivered his powerful conclusion, "America, the truth has finally liberated us all." The room erupted in thunderous applause. In his isolated hotel room, Jeffrey collapsed completely onto the floor. The crushing weight of his deceptions finally overwhelmed him completely as Trump's historic speech replayed across America. At sunrise, news helicopters hovered over Washington as emergency sirens wailed throughout the district. Breaking news banners flashed urgently. Federal agents issue formal arrest warrant for Hakeem Jeff. Television cameras captured Jeff being led away in handcuffs. His once defiant expression now pale and utterly defeated. In the Oval Office, Trump observed the developments quietly without celebration. "Mr. President," Pam Bondi remarked softly, "the entire nation watches in amazement. They recognize you were telling the absolute truth throughout this ordeal." Trump sighed deeply, the weight of responsibility evident. "This was never about my personal vindication. This concerned preserving America's fundamental moral integrity." That evening, Trump addressed the nation one final time regarding this matter. "My fellow Americans," he began, his voice breaking with emotion, "this has represented the most challenging battle of my entire life. Not for political power or personal advantage, but for the future well-being of our precious children. I solemnly promise to protect innocent victims regardless of personal cost. Although powerful forces attempted to destroy my reputation, your unwavering faith provided me with strength to continue. Together, we've exposed corruption at its most fundamental level." The camera zoomed in as Trump's eyes visibly moistened with emotion. "America will always remain worth fighting for. Every battle, every sacrifice, let's continue this journey together and restore this nation's greatness permanently." Did this powerful story move you emotionally? Did it transform your perspective completely? Then please don't simply scroll away without engagement. Like this video if you stand firmly with truth and justice. Comment below sharing which specific moment affected you most deeply. Subscribe immediately and join our channel for exclusive behind-the-scenes content, powerful untold stories. Together we remain absolutely unstoppable. God bless you and God bless America.